YouTube. Today I'm going to teach you how to program a gentleman's split. If you don't know what that is, I made a video to distinguish this type of template from a body part split. And for me, a gentleman's split is the best type of training template you can follow. That's my subjective opinion, but I have logic and arguments to back it up. Today is not the point of this video though, because what I'm going to tell you is I'm going to explain to you how you're going to create the structure and the skeleton of the program so that you can, you yourself, create a regimen that is going to allow you to train following the principles that I apply to my training. You're not going to be training exactly as I do because, of course, the variables of volume and intensity are going to be widely different. Your exercise selection is not going to be the same. The amount of sets and reps for the muscle parts are not going to be the same, but the idea surrounding it will. And that's what's important. That's what I want to promote with the gentleman's split. It's the flexibility and it's certain aspects that to me are superior to other templates. And I make that video. Why? Because I'm going to next Sunday release a free program that is going to be the first gentleman's split I'm going to put on the channel. Technically, I already put a body part split that followed the principles that I apply, but this time I'm going to give it its real name and I'm going to apply the full panel of principles to it. And usually when I do things like this, I always like to give you a little bit of time so that you can come up with something yourself and then you can compare it to what I've done so that you might come up with something new or you might learn something about programmation. So we're going to start. As far as the template goes, the first thing to consider is there are a certain number of days that you're going to have to train for the template to be effective. And there's an extreme range and there's a sub-extreme range and then there is an optimal range. The extreme range is going to be 2 days and 7 days, meaning that both of these options are not even considered okay for that template. You will not be able to apply it for that template. So it's out of the equation. If you can only train 2 days or 7, most likely that template will not work for you. For 2, it's because the frequency will be way too low and you're going to have to do way too much volume. For 7 is because it might just be ineffective because you will be training every day where you could just be combining days together, or you would need to be extremely advanced in terms of your ability to handle volume to need to do a 7-day gentleman's split. So that's also out of the picture. As far as the sub-extreme range, I think 3 days and 6 days are in there. 3 days because you're going to see with the way I actually handle the template that you're going to miss 1 day. You're 1 day short of it being almost perfect. So it's still sort of doable, but it's not what I would advise most people to do. Technically, if you're a novice and you really want to do that type of body part split, it's possible you would fall into that. But I put it into the sub-extreme category because I truly think that novices don't need that type of advanced program yet. But it's your body, you can do what you want. So if you can only train for 3 days, you're in there. 6 days, that's what I train, that's how I apply my training program. It's for individuals that respond extremely well to volume, for individuals that might not have the best leverages, who might not be the best for strength, and therefore when your strength potential is low, your ability to push tonnage is also not going to be super correlated with intensity, especially if you're injury prone on certain rep ranges. And in that case, you need more days to accumulate the volume. That's me, but that's also rare. So you're also in the sub-extreme category. And now for the optimal categories. The optimal is going to be 4 to 5 days. That's your striking range for that type of training program. 4 days, I would say, is much closer to the center in terms of optimization of the template. But 5 is also something that I consider to be okay and applicable. So that's for how many days you can train. As far as the way the program is going to be scheduled, we are going to take the skeleton of an upper-lower and apply it to the gentleman's split. My reasoning for that is as follows. In terms of pure synergy, it is much better to have days focused on only the upper body and days focused on only the lower body. For warm-ups, it's going to save you time, it's going to prevent injury. For synergy of muscle activations, it's much easier to train shoulders and triceps than shoulders and glutes because the muscles are synergistic on one hand and completely desynchronized on the other hand. And as far as the ability to handle volume, the ability to program variations, things that go hand in hand, the ability to do supersets that make sense. An upper lower is the best template. It's simple yet effective because it's the way the body works. When you do a lower body movement, a compound movement for the legs activate, the lower body activates, the upper body barely activates. And for people who would say, oh, but the deadlift, it's the same for the deadlift. Your upper body is activating when you do a deadlift, but what's working the most is the posterior chain. It's the same for a bench. When you do a bench, everything here is light up. Your legs do work for the leg drive, but they don't really activate enough to be considered actual tonnage. So that's where it's coming from. So we apply it like this. So you'll have data that are called upper and data called lower. Are we going to respect that to a T? No, because if we did, this type of program would be called an upper lower, and that's not what it is. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take the guidelines of the upper lower, but we're going to just do whatever we want, meaning that if there are certain lists that can work synergistically within an upper, but do not qualify as upper, we're still going to put them in, okay? So if you want to train calves on an upper day, you are free to train calves. If you want to train upper back on the lower day, feel free to train upper back. That's the point of the gentleman split. It's flexible. There's no hard boundaries when it comes to that. So now we have the amount of days that we want, and we have the what I would call limitations that we are applying to ourselves so that we have a much stricter guideline to follow and it's easier to program. So now you have your days. What you're going to do is now you're going to categorize, you're going to give a name to each day, and that name is going to be one, the main movement pattern that is going to be targeted on that day, and that is going to be, selected on that day, and two, the main muscles that are going to be targeted on that day. So for example, you can think it depends on your mind and the way your mind is shaped. Some people will be much more comfortable starting with a movement pattern and then work the muscle groups afterwards. Some are the other way around. I personally started with the movement patterns. It just worked for me better. But to put an example and to put that into action, on your upper day, for example, you're going to call it a bench day, meaning that the meat and potatoes of that day will be bench. When I say bench, it can be an horizontal press. As long as it's something like a dip, a push-up, it works, okay? And now that you have this, you're going to build around the bench. But before you do that, you're going to do the body part split type of the part of the equation that complements the upper lower, and you're going to decide which muscles you train on that day. The more advanced you become, the more muscles you're going to train, the more intricate it's going to be. But for the most part, even if you're just getting started with gentleman split, it needs to be something that justifies the existence of the day. If you do triceps, that's not a gentleman split, it's a bro split, it's not the same. This is why the existence of the movement pattern to determine the day is so important, to prevent you from doing that. Because there exists no compound movement, or at least no heavy compound movement, that can be done and only recruit one muscle. It's not possible. So for the bench, you're going to do chest, triceps, shoulders, okay? That's a solid day. That is what I would call a starter for most people who are going to get used to gentleman split, because that's already going to be something you can do with an horizontal press, and then you can do a vertical press, you can do a chest accessory or a shoulder accessory, and then you build from it. And that's the part where I'm not going to get into too much details here, because I'm going to make more videos about gentleman split, and I'm going to go into more of the complexity of them and how you can really push them forward and be more advanced when it comes to actually programming them. But a lot of it I want you to discover for yourself. And what you're going to discover is you might want to start slapping muscles on that day that are not going to make too much sense at first. For example, I want to do more bicep on that day. What movement recruits the chest and the bicep? None. What movement is going to recruit the triceps and the biceps? None, because they're antagonistic. Okay, so you're going to have to find a way to implement biceps in there. I think a good way to do that would be bicep banded curls, elastic band curls. That's a good way. It's easy on the tendons. It's good for the bicep. You can do chin-ups, and in that sense, you're adding upper back work. Okay, so now you're starting to pile things on top of that. What you need to be careful with is you don't want to be too greedy. Don't put too many muscle groups on that day because you need to be able to target all of them. If you put too many muscle groups, you know what's going to happen? That template is going to turn into a full body workout, and you want to avoid that. I don't like full body workouts. For the most part, I've seen people do them well. For the most part, it's not done well. And the main issue with the full body is that the muscle groups don't get enough love. You don't dig deep enough. So in a sense, it's good for novices, but at some point, it's not going to be conducive to massive gains. So you have to stay within a reach where you can really destroy the muscles, okay? So that's for an upper. Let's do the same for a lower body. Lower body, okay? We start lower. You decide on a lift, squats. Okay, squats, glutes, hamstrings, lower back, quads. Glutes, yeah. So those are your muscles. You could add calves to it. You could have core. You could have upper back. You will find that one of the reasons why I love the gentleman split is because upper back goes everywhere. You can put the upper back everywhere. It works. And the upper back can handle massive amounts of volume if you know how to train it. So that's why I love that template so much. And as you build from it, you also realize that you will have a list, sort of a laundry list, of compound movements where it might start with bench and squat, but then there's going to be more and more lifts that are going to slap them on top of that. So overhead press, close grip bench press, and underneath the squat, you might have a hip hinge like a Romanian deadlift, and you might have glute ham raises and everything. These are going to constitute your exercise selection. That needs to be done beforehand. And I say that now. The reason why I say that is because I will be making a video telling you how to prepare for a program, because right now we're already way past that. Okay? Exercise selection is something that needs to be decided first and foremost, but I don't want to spoil the video too much. So just so you know, this is going to be a step that needs to be taken before we do this. You don't want to decide the exercises on the spot. They need to be thought about well, because since they're going to be connected with one another and they need to be synergistic within the program, you need to have some reflection beforehand. And so what you do with this is, let's say you do your 4 days, you're going to replicate what I just did for the upper lower for the other 2 days. After that, you're going to also have to decide the frequency of that. If you do a 4-day upper lower, what most people would do is upper on Monday, lower on Tuesday, then maybe rest on Wednesday, and then another cycle on Thursday, Friday, and then the weekend. That is entirely up to you. And you know what? The existence of that template within a 7 days week is also entirely up to you, because remember that time is a subjective notion. There is no such thing as a week. We invented that. So if you have to find patterns of the upper lower for your 4-day template that works better for you, then do it. You'll have to think about it. I can't do it for you because it's a matter of frequency. It's a matter of how much volume and intensity you can handle on one day, recover, and then train again the next day. And that's the reason why you need to learn how to program, because only you can do that for yourself. So that is going to be the main structure of the template. You see, it's right now, it's not complex at all. It's a very easy way to approach training, actually. And a lot of people do it instinctively. In my program reviews, sometimes I look at programs and I'm like, oh, that's a gentleman split. Because people just come up with it because it makes a lot of sense. And as far as the training goes, you will find with that type of program that you can be a little bit under ambitious when you start, because you will build up on it. And that's another topic that needs to be developed. It's the alpha test and the beta test of programs that a lot of people skim through or don't even know about because they never write programs. But it needs to be done properly, meaning that you will never jump on a program that you've never tested before and make no modifications. It's not possible. The modifications need to happen during the beta test, and then the program is solidified and you cruise on the program. But that is going to be something that happens after you've done the step that I told you to do. So that is going to be that for this video. This is first step of building the skeleton of that type of gentleman split and how to do the template properly. I will be making more videos for the most part, explaining the, as I said, the complexification of that type of program and what to look out for, how to add evolving rep range to that, etc., because I want to connect the notions on this channel together. But this is going to be the meat and potatoes of that. That's how you make a gentleman split. It's not complicated, you can do it yourself. So, if you want to see if you stacked up properly, what I advise you do is try to do your own at home, keep it somewhere safe, and next Sunday compare what you've done to what I've done and see how it goes. Because the program I'm going to release is going to be a bit special because it's going to be fully, I don't know how to say that. If you know the books, the book that you are your own hero, it's going to be the same thing, meaning that there's going to be variables within it that are going to be adapted to you and that you'll have to switch around, which is going to give you the ability to then match your program on it and potentially run it afterwards. But that's for a later time. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.